everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. This is Romantic Suspense, Compelling Stories. And we're going to talk to you about the genre of romantic suspense, and we'll also leave some time at the end for question and answers. So, panelists, why don't we start by each of us introducing ourselves, telling a little bit about the romantic suspense series that we have, and then we'll get into some questions. So, Eileen, would you start?
Sure. I'm Eileen Dreyer. I also wrote as Kathleen Corbell for Silhouette. Basically, everything I write is romantic suspense because I'm always nervous about just putting two people in a room and having them talk for a whole book, or whatever. But you know, put a bullet through the window, you're good for 3 chapters. And I do like regular romantic suspense, and I also do, it's more suspenseful it's relationship and suspense. These are my medical forensic suspense. That's not really a series. I do more standalones because I don't like to torture my heroines for 8 books like I do in 1 book. And basically what I did, I was an old trauma nurse and trained in forensics death investigation, and I'm trained as a member of a SWAT team. Whoa. And so I kill off everyone who annoyed me when I worked. Yes, it is that good.
I feel like all our stories are going to be similar. Killed off a lot of people. All right, so I have 52 books. I've got 3 series, romantic suspense. Well, 4 series. I just closed one down and started a new one. 4 series, 2 romantic mystery, 2 romantic suspense. They're all, the mysteries are first person, but they do have a romance thread all the way through, 1 couple. And my suspenses are third person, and my Mackenzie series has 18 books in it, and then my new series for Pocket comes out May, June, July, The Gravediggers, and it's a little darker romantic suspense, but I can't write too dark because I'm super sarcastic. But I was a band director for 10 years, so it's not so much killed off a lot of parents, but it's the same way. Like, I have trouble, just the same thing, like putting 2 people in a room and expecting a relationship to develop. Like, that's very daunting. That's scary. It's like these people's lives are in my hands. But like, if you kill somebody, or if you shoot someone, or just putting that little extra thing in it, you don't even have to worry about the relationship. It's gonna happen on the run. In the jungle sometimes.
Naked.
When they're not bathed for a couple days.
Right, I know. No, my character's bathed. I'm sorry.
That's what I told my editor with my last one. I was like, look, there, and she's like, I need a sex scene here. And I'm like, her feet are blistered and they're dirty. I was like, I can't make it happen.
My agent once said, couldn't we have one sex scene? I said, honey, between them, they don't have enough blood supply.
I'm Karen Rose, and I write romantic suspense. My 19th book comes out this summer, and my current series is set in Cincinnati, where I lived for a long time, and I just like to go and drop serial killers in cities that are unsuspecting. I was a chemical engineer before I was a writer, and I too kill off people for therapy and profit. And I started with a kid that spit on me when I was in the 2nd grade, and I think I'm up to, I don't know, maybe up to middle school by now. And I take requests from friends. And my editors often tell me I kill too many people, which is very sad. You can't, this is example of gratuitous violence. It's a suspense. You have to expect a few people to die. But so I've been doing this. I've been published since 2003. I've been writing for a lot longer than that. I started as a hobby, and wrote because I was traveling internationally, couldn't understand what was on TV, couldn't pack enough books in my suitcase and have clothes, so I had to choose between being naked and reading. So I would read all my books on the plane over, and then I just wrote in my hotel room to keep myself occupied, and that's how I got started.
Awesome. I'm Julianne Walker. I too write romantic suspense. I have 2 series out. Black Knights Incorporated. We like to say they are Grease Monkey Motorcycle Mechanics by day and Uncle Sam's Last Resort by night. So they are spies on bikes. And then I have the Deep Six series, which is a team of ex-Navy SEALs who are searching for the Holy Grail of sunken Spanish shipwrecks. So it's more action adventure. But we say they their past will not let them forget the Navy SEAL motto that the only easy day was yesterday. So, they keep getting dragged back into things as they're trying to search for this treasure and get rich. I too like to kill people, and I too like gratuitous violence, and I'm okay with dirty sex.
I don't know, maybe not blistered sex.
Maybe not blistered sex.
That's a little easy and fuzzy.
I'm Rebecca Zanetti, and I write dark paranormals and romantic suspense, and even my paranormals have a lot of suspense in them. I was a Senate aide and then a lawyer, so I kill everybody. I even have one series that's post-apocalyptic where I do kill everybody. And we were trying to cure it's a bacteria, we're trying to cure it, and we were using this mouse to experiment on, and I just couldn't kill the mouse. So I went to my agent. I'm like, okay, we can't kill this mouse. Everybody will be mad. And she wrote back, you killed 9 billion people. Forget about the mouse. But we saved the mouse.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Kaye, and I write contemporary romance and romantic suspense. And on the romantic suspense side, I have 2 series. One is the Hard Ink series, which is military romantic suspense. It's about the surviving members of an Army Special Forces unit who are investigating the conspiracy that got them kicked out of the military, and they fall in love along the way. And I have the Raven Rider series, which is my newest series. Ride Rough just came out on Tuesday the 25th, and that is about a bike club with a protective mission. And the difference between the 2 series is that the Hard Ink series has an overarching suspense plot that goes across all the books in the series, and the Raven Rider series is more of a standalone suspense plot in each book. And so it's been interesting to write, those 2 different kinds of suspense stories. I have also written paranormal. I have a Greek mythology series that's complete. It's a 4-book series called The Hearts of the Anemoi. And that also has a lot of suspense in it as well. Although at the time I didn't necessarily think of it as writing suspense, but now that I write more suspense, I realized that I was sort of like learning the ropes on some of the suspense elements. My background is that I was until 2013 an associate professor of history at the United States Naval Academy, where I worked for 8 years. And so the reason I started writing Army guys in the Hard Ink series was because I worked for the Navy and I taught 18 to 24-year-old naval midshipmen, and it seemed a little weird to be writing sex scenes with Navy guys when I was teaching 18 to 24-year-old men in the Navy. So I started with Army guys, although go Navy. And so that was my background that I brought in part to writing romantic suspense. So thank you. So for those introductions. So we're talking about compelling stories. And so I want to start sort of big picture, which is to each of you, what makes a romantic suspense story compelling? Why do you think readers love it? What makes you love it as a writer? Maybe beyond the scariness of putting 2 people in a room and figuring out how to make a relationship out of them. So Rebecca, would you start?
Of course.
I started on the last
I think what makes, any genre, any book compelling is the characters. Mm-hmm. Their backgrounds, their conflicts, the tension, the risks, whatever's happening to them, why it's happening to them, and how they react to whatever is happening, for me, is what makes it compelling. I mean, you could throw in, in a paranormal, you can throw in a werewolf, in a romantic suspense, you can throw in bullets flying, but it's really the characters and what's going on with them that keeps the reader coming back for more and keeps the reader turning the page because they care about the characters.
I would agree with her. I would say, as a series writer, and I think all of us are series writers, another compelling element to writing a series is that people come back because they love the world, because you've created a world. They also want to come revisit characters that they've fallen in love with. And so while it's character driven, it's also, if you have a band of brothers, people want to see the interaction between the men or the women in their lives. They love that world and all the characters together. And so I think romantic suspense actually lends itself very well to that, because usually it's a team of guys or a team of a family who, does the investigative work or something. So, yeah.
My books, when I first started writing romantic suspense, I had this idea in my head of the ending credits of Law and Order, the opening of the ending credits of the opening, where you have Jack McCoy and whoever his ADA du jour is, and then the two cops, Lenny Briscoe and whoever he's with at the time. And I thought that's the series I want to write because I care about the people, I care about the interactions, and so that's how I've set these things up. And people will come back and say it's like old friends.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
They want that. They want to know what happens to them. And within the books themselves, I think it makes it more compelling if you have victims that are also compelling.
Yes.
It's not just the main characters. I think it's also the victims. A victim that's human makes your villain a lot more terrifying. It makes the suspense. It ratchets up. It ups the ante on the suspense.
Oh, I agree with everybody. Very much the characters, very much the family, like my Mackenzies, it's all one family, and don't kill off anybody important because then you get really angry emails.
Yes.
Which I learned
The hard way.
the hard way.
Yes. Bring them back. They weren't like a twin in Switzerland.
Sometimes people need to die, though.
No, that's true.
To push the story
I think there's a
forward.
law in Texas about that.
Yeah. Like my husband's a cop. He'll tell you every day. Sometimes people need to die. And
I'm a trauma nurse. I agree.
but you're putting these characters that people love in these situations, and same thing with the grave diggers. They're a brotherhood of like special ops that were betrayed by their countries. It's international. They're each betrayed by their countries and blacklisted, and so like they formed their own special ops group to kind of take down everybody that's betrayed them to the beginning. But I put these people in these situations, and then my next question every time is, how can I mess them up more? I mean, just to ratchet that tension all the way up, whether it's with the relationship or whether it's with the plot. And it is relationship driven. It is about these characters that they love, but secondary characters are so important in suspense, especially when you're writing a series. So, I might have little threads going on throughout, like one of my heroes, like his wife is still alive and he's still very much in love with her, but he's dead and betrayed by his country and working, and so like through this whole series, like everybody's like, what about him? Like, what about his wife? Is he going to fall in love with somebody else or go back to his wife? And he's like, I don't know yet, actually. But like whatever I can do, and that's always the question I ask. I ask myself probably that, the beginning of every chapter. They're here, and now what can I do to mess them up? Like, what can I do to bring every fear, every bad thing that they want to happen? How can I put that on the page to just ratchet up the tension of the suspense more? And also bring them closer together in a relationship, because that creates dialogue.
I don't agree with anything. I'm kidding. I agree with everybody. To me, when you're talking about suspense, any book is a suspense, because the definition for me of suspense is I have to turn the page and find out what happens. So even if you're like reading Laverne Spencer, who is that's the person that I benchmark myself against when I go, yeah, no, I can't do that. I have to put suspense in the book because she could do it. I couldn't get away with that. But to me, when you're talking about suspense with like crime and chases and stuff like that, the suspense, the stakes have to be big and they have to be personal somehow. And then you introduce not just the main character who is up against the bad guy or the bad thing or the bad whatever. You introduce another person that they must rely on, and they're taken out of their universe of safety, and the only person around to rely on is this person. So, everything is heightened. All the suspense, all the tension, the sexual tension, because there's going to be sexual tension in a romantic suspense, or it's kind of a waste of time. And so, to me, that really helps define the romantic suspense. I'm doing a series now that's I call it historical romantic adventure with nefarious spies. In Regency England, and again, I'm having so much fun with these characters because they are the band of brothers, and then you introduce the heroines to them into this tight knit group. It's kind of like people marrying into my family. It's really tough to do because you're very these guys are very protective of each other, and they want to and usually the heroines are possibly the bad guys, or the heroine is your main character and the hero is possibly the bad guy. So you've got all of this uncertainty going on, and it just makes for great tension. And of course, they're hot for each other. Well, they're not sure if they're that guy or not.
Yeah, of course, I agree with everything that everyone has said as well. I think for me, what makes suspense really compelling is the urgency of it, whether it's the sexual relationship, because there's not lots of time for, you know, sort of there's not time for dating when people are, you know, so there's an urgency to the sexual tension, and there's an urgency to the suspense element, or the bad guy chasing them, or the investigation keeps getting ratcheted up and the stakes keep getting ratcheted up. And I think that that's one of the things that makes suspense so much the kind of book where you just have to keep turning the pages to find out what happens next. And I think in terms of the characters, I totally agree. And I think to take the idea of the characters a step further, I would say that readers are very concerned about their favorite characters and secondary characters getting hurt or killed. And so that's part of what drives them on, and especially if they start hearing other people talk about, like, oh my God, somebody gets hurt, or oh my God, somebody dies, or a building blows up, or whatever it is, they're like, so-and-so better not have gotten hurt. And then if you do hurt them, then they're like, I mean, some of my favorite emails are the ones where you like, I can't believe you did that. I was at a conference once at a bookseller luncheon, and this lady comes running across the room at me, and she is clearly angry and upset, and she's like, I'm mad at you. And I've never met this lady in my life. And it was because I had killed a secondary character in a book, and he was one of her favorite characters, and she had been holding out hopes that he would get a book of his own, but he had to die. I'm sorry, he had to die.
Sometimes people have to die.
They do. Yeah. But that kind of investment, I think suspense lends itself to that kind of investment in all the characters, especially because so many of us are writing the cast of characters in suspense. So let's talk more about characters.
Well, I want to add one thing to
ahead.
this topic about what makes a romantic suspense compelling, and I think it's the bad guy. I invest just as much character, like I do my character outline behind the bad guy. What is his motivation? Why is he a bad guy? And readers love that. We like to kind of explore the dark mind. Like, why is this person doing this to our hero and heroine? Why is he after them? That's really fascinating for the reader. So, yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes romantic suspense good.
Psychology.
Psychology of what is happening.
One of the best lines I heard about villains is, every villain is the hero of his own story.
Yes. Yep.
The other thing that I love about villains, if you're doing any kind of suspense, is I believe you need to draw the villain well enough to be worthy of the hero, and vice versa.
Yep.
They have to
Because
be. For
the
part of the story,
hero
they have to be smarter.
The hero hones him or herself on that villain. And they, it's like, I don't know if I can't remember what it was. There was a movie I was watching, and it's like the hero was going through hell, and the villain is like, oh, come on, you're basically killing yourself for nothing. It's pointless. And then you feel like he's an idiot. Everybody's an idiot in the movie or the book. So they need to be worthy of each other. You need Clarice and you need Hannibal Lecter. And I really hate that last book because he sold them out.
Just saying. He sold them out how? Did he
Because
become good? I hate it when they become good. I hate
Clarice
that.
surrendered.
Oh.
That's not the way that works.
No.
There's no surrender.
No.
And then they don't become good.
No.
No.
Oh God, no. Well,
It's a good villain,
That
they're
was the
not gonna
problem I
become
had
good.
with Dexter. Dexter was a great
Let's
concept.
not talk about that ending. I mean, I'm still all
you
these
still
years later.
traumatized?
Like I get a physical reaction to it.
No, the minute he's like, I fell in love and I'm responsible for these people.
No.
I trained with the guys who founded the behavioral
He
science.
becomes a lumberjack. That's how it ends. I'm really having a problem with this. We have to move on.
And here's the reader reaction that suspense creates right here on this page.
That's what happens. They broke things.
Do you feel betrayed by the book?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing that makes me crankier, and I will not go back to that author if they betray me. And that was not the author who did that of the series, because the series is great. It was the television producers who went, oh, we're not doing enough of this, and so he needs a relationship. No,
Right.
he doesn't. He wouldn't ever have those relationships, ever.
Yes.
Well, let's talk more about characters, because Karen said something that really interested me. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about how to, when you're writing your characters, to balance sort of the badass, alpha, overbearing, I've got all the expertise kind of heroes and heroines with the relatability, with making them sympathetic, with making them feel like they exist in the real world and you might really know them, and also how you incorporate moments of weaknesses and flaws into them, whether they're the victim or the savior, the protector. So Karen, would you start on that one?
They have to be real, and in my mind they are real. I talk to them, and my husband worries about me. You realize they're not real, but they are. They have to be real, or they're not going to be real to the reader. I think that there's so many ways to do that. I mean, you can have a real crotchety guy who nobody really likes, and you're not supposed to like him at the beginning, but you don't want people to hate him. You give him a dog.
Right.
His dog loves him.
Right.
He's not all
He's
bad.
redeemable.
Or maybe he shovels the walk of his elderly neighbor, and nobody ever knows he does it, but the reader knows he does it.
Right.
You give them that small little kernel, and then you can expand it. You don't want anybody to hate him at the beginning, because that you've created something that's almost insurmountable.
He has to be redeemable.
He has to be, but if he's a hero, and even if he's the hero that's just like, I hate the world today. You still want to make him so that he's relatable, and that you still want them to cheer for him. So there's a lot of ways to do that balance. I'm personally not really comfortable writing this, and this is my personal comfort level, with the hero and the heroine who are constantly angry at each other. I had one, and they were angry at each other until like chapter 6, and I was a nervous wreck. I had to get that settled. I personally, that's something I can't do. Just in terms of setting the relationships and creating the balance. They're all people. They all have backstories, and in their moments of weakness, everybody has a vulnerability. Even your villain has a vulnerability, and it needs to be a believable vulnerability, such as, okay, well, you stole my son, and I want him back, not because I love him, even though I may say those words, but it's because he's a possession, and you made me look bad, So you have to have that motivation, and that's how, and the balance. But even your villain has to have a vulnerability. But there's family. I mean, if a guy has a family, and the family showcases all the lovely things about them, you don't have to say, oh yeah, I'm this alpha guy, but I have a soft spot. You show it with the way people react to him.
Right.
Jules?
I think that in romantic suspense, when it's done well, you really do have an alpha hero, but he doesn't cross that line into what I like to call the alpha hole. Alpha holes are, everyone knows this. It works really well in paranormal because he's a werewolf and there's the mating urge and he can drag her wherever she wants because he's the moon is controlling him, and we're like, okay, we forgive you, But in romantic suspense, this is right, exactly. But in romantic suspense, we're not allowed that. These are supposed to be contemporary characters for the most part, and even historical. It's still supposed to be. They're not driven by the moon. They have to be real men. And so you have to toe that line between a guy who is confident and certain of himself and does have the expertise or whatever it is, but is still a man that a contemporary woman would want to fall in love with.
Right.
So I think that the good romantic suspense authors, which all of these ladies on the panel are, they have alpha heroes, but they don't cross that line into the alpha hole. And I think that that has a lot to do with respecting the heroine. No matter what happens, it's never just, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, come with me. There's always that level of respect where they treat a woman as an equal, even if he does have the expertise. He respects her wishes and her decisions and all that kind of stuff. So.
For me, I like the small gesture when it isn't required. Like when you have characters who are angry with each other and they have every right to be angry, and the reader would forgive a big slight or even a rudeness, and all of a sudden the character does something kind. Like the heroine's furious with the hero, and yet she gives him her cookie because he's hungry, and she's still mad, but you see that. Or when you see the alpha hero, and he could toss her over his shoulder and run away, and instead he helps her into the car, even though he does legitimately have a reason to be angry. I think it's when we act in a way that people don't expect, and when we act nicely in a way people don't expect, that it has a much stronger impact. And I like that. I like reading that. I like seeing it on TV. I like seeing it among real people. That, you know, that kindness when nobody else is watching, but you see it. You know, and it just gives you that warm feeling inside, you know, before things start blowing up and people start having wild sex, which is also good.
One of the things, I was thinking about the family thing. The families work great. One of the things that I love to use is humor.
Yep.
My favorite example for myself, I did a book as Kathleen Corbell called Jake's Way, and he's a cowboy, and he has very deep troubles, and he's trying to be a good honorable man, you know this, but he's classic alpha and just no sense of humor. And I'm writing him, and I'm thinking, I mean, there's a scene where he shows up at the heroine's house, and they both end up on the floor, and she looks up at him and goes, "We never say hello anymore." And I mean, it's just they bump like bunnies, but he's got no sense of humor. And I thought, I can't do this because I'm a nurse, I'm Irish. Humor is the weapon of choice in my family. And all of a sudden I realized he needs his family. He needs a family. And I threw in like 3 siblings who spent the whole time making fun of him. And he was like, well, that's fine, and laughing along with him. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, thank God, he's human again. And then I gave them their books.
And I think too, like, I love one of my favorite things to write is a hero and heroine that have had a past relationship, and then I love to start I love the just arguing, like that tension, you know, that because it creates such great dialogue, you know, throughout. And while in the middle, like you're putting them in this situation where they're having to rely on each other, you know, and so I love that.
That's why there's all of them.
Yeah,
you know, we all write something different.
And you know, and going back to what Jules was saying with the alpha hole, and the God's honest truth is that the kind of heroes we write, like your black ops and your special ops, and like that's what my husband did his doctoral dissertation research on was that, and that was him. And we didn't get married till he was much older in life, because they do not make in real life good spouses. And they know that, and so you really have to take them at the alpha hero and like all the incredible things that the psychology of that job does to them, and take it to where they're livable, you know, and that's not easy to do, you know.
And they're never going to be soft.
No, they're not, and that's something, you know, like living with one, like I understand the psychology a little better, you know, like I understand what it does to you through the course of your life, you know, and that you have to deal with those things, but they're not the people on the page that are going to think about, you know, the softness. They're thinking about they're thinking about what the situation is, how to assess the situation if things go bad. You know, they're thinking about everything. They're thinking about you as the whole, like the heroine as the whole, but they're thinking about her as part of the collective. And so it's, you know, you've got to have a really special heroine to go with a hero like that. So you know, it's always super important that they match. You were talking about, you know, those little things, those little details about the villain too, and having those. You know, one of the most emails that I got about a scene was in my J.J. Graves series. She's a coroner, and the bad guy is laying on her table. He's dead. He's one of the bad guys. There's a bunch. You know, but and sewn inside his pocket is his wedding ring. You know, and she like completely loses it. And I get emails all the time about that, like about how emotional that scene was for her, because there's this guy that they've been after, and then in there is his wedding ring that he's obviously kept with him, you know, all the time. You know.
See, I love that. Like, gives me chills.
Yeah. So for me, backstory is really important to creating empathy for a character so that when he perhaps does cross a line or become a little bit of an alpha hole, you understand where it's coming from. I don't think a character has to be likable every second of a book, but they have to be understandable. Like, you have to understand the backstory and the wounds and the training and the characterization that will allow the reader a few times where they'll forgive the character for doing something that isn't quite the right way to go. And I also think humor is really important in romantic suspense as well. You don't want to break the tension entirely, but actually sometimes, especially with like the graveyard humor and stuff, it can build characterization, it can build that brotherhood, it can offer a moment of just a little bit of emotional letdown for the reader, which maybe lets them let their guard down a little bit before you throw the next big explosion at them.
Right.
One of the scenes that I get probably some of the most fan mail about and comments on Facebook and so forth is my heroine in the first book in the Harding series, which is called Hard as It Gets, finds a 3-legged German Shepherd puppy. And she doesn't know what to do, so she brings it home, and then very quickly thereafter she ends up having to live at the hero's sort of compound when stuff starts going south. And they don't know what to name this puppy. They decide to keep it, and then all the guys start offering these terrible names for this puppy, like tripod and kickstand, and she's like horrified that this is terrible, terrible, terrible. And the whole book, they're trying to come up with names. And it's this little running bit of humor. And then ultimately, one of the guys comes up with Eileen. And there's this scene where the guy, try to convince her, because now it's become a competition between the men, which name she's going to pick. The one guy who comes up with Eileen starts singing the 80s anthem, Come On Eileen, to her. And then they all join in, and she's like, you people are ridiculous. But that scene, like, I get comments, that book came out in 2012, and I get comments all the time on social media. I heard Come On Eileen, and I couldn't, like, I thought of that scene, and so I think that the humor can really make an impact on characterization too. I want to say something for a minute about heroines, because we didn't say a lot about heroines. I really like heroines. I don't mind a heroine who starts out weak in a book or starts out as the victim, because I think what that allows is a really awesome and satisfying character arc for her, where she comes into her own, she learns how to stand up for herself. And I really, really, really love when the heroine ultimately has to protect or save the hero. I think that makes, even if they don't start out as equal, that kind of scene ultimately makes them equals in strength and equals in courage that I feel like you ultimately have to get to in a romantic suspense if you don't start there. I like kick-ass heroines too. I don't have any problem writing a heroine who knows how to take care of herself from the beginning. But I think you can play with a lot of kinds of romantic pairings in romantic suspense.
Yeah.
I have a couple more prepared questions, but maybe we should open it up to some questions and see what you all would like to hear more about. Yes, lady in the pink.
With all the killing off that's going on, what are some of your favorite resource materials for the poisons, weaponry, forensic techniques? Is there a particular book that you really, like to really leaf through and have lots of post-it notes in as a reference?
One of the people you can rely on is D.P. Lyle, L-Y-L-E.
Yeah, that's great.
He does lots of research material for writers on forensics and medicine. Doug is a physician, was an emergency room physician, and has a great resource base. One of the things that I did, and I highly suggest if you can do it, I took the Police Citizens Academy in St. Louis, and I also took the FBI Citizens Academy. Because not only, the important thing isn't that they're going to tell you what they do, because what you do is the guys who teach or the guys who are in charge of each different unit within your community will talk to you about what they do, but then you get their cards. And they know you're an author, they know you took that time, You do ride-alongs. You collect the cards and say, "I will be talking to you if I need you. Is that okay?" And they're delighted. They're delighted to talk to you because they know you took that extra effort.
And I'll say too, like that's actually what my husband does now. Is we run a company called Silverheart, and Doug Lyle is on our expert list, and so we have forensics experts and coroners and detectives and Canadian police and international, Interpol and so firemen, Navy SEALs, and they're all resourced into one. And these are all our contacts, and then authors can go in directly and ask these people questions if you've got specific questions on the website. So it's like silverheartwriters.com. And then I very much, if you're writing suspense and you've never shot a weapon,
Yes.
or you don't know police procedural, or you've never been on a ride along or anything like that, you need to do those things. You need to hold the weapons in your hands. You need to know what they feel like.
You need to know what it's like when the spent casing comes back at you
Yes.
and
burns like
goes
fire.
down your bra and it really burns. Yeah, you need to know these things.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is so important to the story. And look, and readers are not stupid. They know when you have not done those things because you can't fake that.
No.
And
Or you put a safety on a
Right.
pistol.
Right.
Yeah.
And know the law. Know the law. Know
Yes,
what's
know
legal.
the law.
But
And
if you
especially in your area, because law isn't
it
universal.
changes. And also talk to real people. If you want to know how to bury a body in a mine shaft, go talk to a miner.
Right.
They will tell you exactly how to bury a body in because they know.
Right.
And they'll walk you through it. They'll be very excited about walking you through it.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Scarily
and I'll also
excited.
say too, be careful. Like, I talk to writers all the time. Well, I got a resource cop. Look, I forget what the percentage of cops in this nation that are homicide cops. It's small. It's like 4% of cops are homicide cops. The majority of cops, there's 900,000 cops in this country, and a small fraction of them have worked or seen a dead body.
Right.
And you can't just talk to some deputy down the street that is a traffic cop who has never worked a homicide. They're not going to know. Now, that's not going to say that they're going to have stories. They're going to all have stories because they're all full of BS. And they just are. But talk to people that have really been there. And look, the people that are hardest to talk to are the people that have really been there. They don't want to talk about it. So you got to be really careful.
I'll tell you what the first thing you do. You sit down. When you contact them, there's no recording, and what's off tape is off tape, and that's where you get some of your best stuff.
And never,
if you say,
ever,
trust me, and I will prove to you, and show them that you're professional. Because that's so important. If they think that you're just screwing around, you're not going to get anything.
Right.
The other thing is, everybody knows either a cop or a nurse in an emergency room or a hospital. Get those people to give you direct recommendations. Because there's nothing that cuts those corners faster than saying, my friend is a writer, I trust her, she wants to talk to you about A, B, C, D. And they'll sit down with you, and they'll be much more likely to be honest with you than if you just came in off the street.
Yeah, and never, ever ask like a cop or a SWAT officer or any of those special ops guys if they've killed anyone. Ever.
Yeah.
Another resource that's really good, and he's just come out with the second book, is Jeff Simon.
Who's going to say?
Yeah, and he posts Forensic Fact of the Week on Twitter every Sunday. He's really funny, and he's very approachable, and he loves to help people. 20-year forensic investigator with the FBI. So, and he's worked on some very high-profile cases.
Also, if you want to do hands-on, Lee Laughlin, Lofland, LA Cop, has started the Writers Police Academy that is incredibly hands-on and intensive. It's a weekend, I think, and he just signed up for this year, and it's probably already sold out. But look it up, and make your reservations if you get a chance. It's wonderful. And also, if you're interested in in-depth stuff, there are death investigation schools around the United States. St. Louis University does one of the best I've ever been in. It's a week long, and you cover freaking everything.
It's also not easy to do, to get a tour of the morgue. Really not easy. And you can't just say, hi, I'm a writer, I want a tour of the morgue. I have my best childhood friend, her husband, he's an ER doctor for almost 30 years now. And he got me into the morgue. I went to visit, he said, what do you want to do? I said, can you get me into the morgue? And he said, well, I'll try. So he was able to, and I lucked out. I ended up, it was a quiet day. There was actually an Emmys convention in Vegas, and everybody was gone. Like, what do they do?
Yeah.
But no, they spent like 4 hours with me. But because I was with a doctor friend, and I saw a lot more than I really wanted to see. I hadn't wanted to see an autopsy, and I did, and it was not the thing that it was. I had never seen a dead body outside of a casket before in my life, and that was. It ended up going into a book, my experience within it. So you just never know where you're going to get these. And then if you know, like Eileen said, if you know doctors, ask them. Some of them will be surprisingly happy to tell you how to kill people, and I'm not. It is. Yeah, it is. It's true.
I was working on a book, and I was working in the emergency room at the time, and I was sitting there going, okay, so I need to do a mercy killing. What would be your favorite method? And believe me when I tell you, everybody's thought about it. Like how to commit suicide and how to do a mercy killing. And we're sitting there in the aisle, and somebody goes, oh, potassium. No, potassium burns. Well, then first you give them morphine. Well, no, you got to get the morphine out. Well, no, such and such, and then such and such. And all of a sudden their heads popping out the doors. We'll go down the street. So it's like,
I also think your romance community, if you're writing romance, they're a big resource because there are so many writers out there, and I think great thing about the romance community is I think we all live by the tenet that the rising tide lifts all boats. We're very happy to help each other. Because I write Navy SEALs, there's another writer. She doesn't write romantic suspense, but she does write about Navy SEALs, but it's contemporary, the softer side of them. Her name's Ann Elizabeth, and her husband is a Navy SEAL, and he has a kind of a website, and he does blog and stuff. He kind of goes around the country debunking people who claim to be Navy SEAls, and do like they'll come to do talks to writer groups and people, and they're not really Navy SEAls, and so he kind of goes around it. It's like liars, and but yeah, I mean he's a great resource, and I would never have known him had I not gotten to know Ann Elizabeth. So you're really, if you have a good writing community, you can pose a question and say, hey, does anybody know anybody who really knows, an air trooper? And they can go, no, but you know what? I can so-and-so probably does, and they can put you in touch with them.
The other thing, though, is remember that whole, they pretend they're Navy SEAls. You go on Google, you don't know who you have.
Exactly.
So be very careful to vet your source. That's called stolen valor. My brother does that, too.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do, for me, writing a lot of military romantic suspense, there are a lot of documentaries about military training, military operations, journalists who get embedded with military units and shoot footage. There actually are a lot of video and written interview resources. I have read lots of, like the Stars and Stripes and Army Times and the military's own materials. Netflix has a lot of military documentaries, and I watched them all. I mean, there's a whole series on going through SEAL training, and so if you want to be able to talk about like the backstory and how that training affected them, watching 10 hours of footage of guys actually going through it is one way to get at it. And particularly if you can't afford Writers Police Academy, which is something I'd love to do and I haven't done yet, or if you don't have someone in your neighborhood or community that you've been able to hook up with yet, there are a lot of online resources. You just have to vet them and make sure you're looking at reliable material. Yes.
I just wanted to add, since we're at romantic suspense, Thriller Fest, which is International Thriller Writers Association. At the beginning of it, they have an FBI workshop, and it's run by current and retired FBI, and that's a great place if you can get in on it, because it sells. I mean, it books up like because I think they only take like 100 or something.
Similarly, the RWA Romantic Suspense chapter, The Kiss of Death, always does the RWA National Conference. They always do a pre-con day at visiting some site in the area, and it sells out like that as well. But if you're interested and you're a member of RWA, I would highly recommend joining that chapter as a resource of other writers doing what we're doing.
Another, and this is a free resource, is if I'm writing a character that's in a profession I don't know a lot about, or I only have like a 30,000-foot knowledge, there are forums where they go on and they share information about themselves, and you get the cadence of how they speak and the words that they use. And I always go to the forum manager, the moderator, and say, I'm here. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to like sneak around. I'm here, and this is what I want. Is it okay? And he's like, they're like, oh, sure, it's okay. Or sometimes they say it's not okay. Right. You know, if it's not okay, I back out. Yeah. But firefighters is a really great one. I found a great firefighter forum, and it was veterans giving advice to the newbies. Mm-hmm. And there was one day, one guy comes on, and he had seen the first death, the first dead person he had pulled out of a fire. How do I handle this? You know what? And the advice that was coming from the veterans, it was wonderful. It was, and that you can't buy that kind of research.
Yeah.
Reddit's a really good site for that.
Yes.
Reddit is literally all of the internet in one.
Right.
So you just find which subreddit where the fire was.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another question. Yes.
Different topic. Do you, I write Romantic Suspense, and I get mixed reviews. I write from the bad guy's point of view, because I find that helps make the reader really realize how psychotic they are, and apparently some readers don't like being in their heads. Do you guys write from the bad guy's point of view?
I do.
Yes,
I do.
Always.
I always tell the villain's point of view.
Yeah.
I do not.
Yeah.
It does depend on the book.
So
My
far,
friend says each book sings its own song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you need that or not, I think.
I've never not done it.
Yeah.
I have never done it.
I always write from
I have written chapters sometimes so that I know
Right.
what's going on in the villain's point of view. But for me, so far in the books that I've written, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of it. But so far in the books that I've written, I have felt like including those chapters allows the reader to know things that my characters do not. And therefore, it feels to me in the books that I've written so far that it actually deflates the tension, because now the reader knows what the bad guy is planning versus it all of a sudden just exploding in their face. Now, it means you need to do some other things, in terms of maybe intelligence gathering or research that your hero and his team are doing, where they're starting to get insight and they're collecting information and finding out who this is. But in my Hard Ink series, they didn't know who the bad guy was. So if I included scenes from the bad guy's point of view, it would have totally revealed well before the actual reveal who it was that was the actual bad guys in the series. So I think there are arguments both ways depending on what you're writing.
Yeah. See, I personally like writing from the bad guy's point of view because in a lot of my books, they think the crisis is over. They don't realize that there's something coming after them, and so that ups the tension in certain situations. That they think everything's done and everything's good to go, and then suddenly we're flipped into the bad guy's point of view, and oh my God, something's coming. They don't know.
Well, and if the reader sees the bad guy's plan and the good
Right.
guy's plan, and the bad guy's plan is so much better
Yes.
than the good guy's plan, all
You're
of a
like,
sudden
oh
the
my God,
reader
how are they
thinks
ever going to get out of
over.
it?
Yeah, so it really can raise the tension to, oh no,
Right.
oh no, this isn't going to work.
Exactly.
I know it's in the reader portion, it's a constant debate of whether they like it or not, and I think it depends on how it's written
Yeah.
as to how they're taking it. But some of them they don't like it, and a lot of times if they don't like it or they like the story, they'll skim over that part and keep going. But it depends on the reader.
Really?
You're not going to please everybody
Well,
with your story.
That's normal.
Yeah.
You can only, basically one of the core things about writing books is you tell yourself the story first.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not telling yourself the story, then you lose. Your readers will know it because the energy will not be there.
Right.
I want to know what's happening. I'm sitting by the fireside myself, telling myself this story. How many of you we got into writing because I can do that and I think I can do it better. and I can tell the story I wanted. Literally, Nancy Drew. I ran out of Nancy Drews to read when I was 10, and the light bulb went on over my head, and I thought, I can write those myself, and I can make them turn out the way I want them to.
Didn't you want Ned to grow a pair? At
Uh-huh.
some point, I mean, Nancy was always saving Ned, which was great, but just once in a while, let Ned step up.
Yeah.
You know, though I love those books, for the record.
Another question. Yes.
Could you guys maybe tell us what you're working on next, or what's coming up for you?
What we're working on next, or what's coming up for us?
Start
Oh,
In
me.
suspense.
In suspense.
Actually, I'm kind of on a small hiatus because I've been working on a nonfiction book that is going out to auction right now. So I don't know what's next.
I've got a lot of next. Let's see, I've got the Gravediggers, so May, June, July for those. I've got a nonfiction that we're working on. I've got, well, I've not announced this yet. There's going to be a spin-off to the J.J. Graves series. And then I've got a surprise that I can't talk about in like October. So
That's mean. I have a book coming out in August, and I left all my stuff in my room. But it's called Monster in the Closet, so here's the cover. And it is a continuation of my Baltimore series. I had a story I had left to tell, and I had a book that I was supposed to be writing that was contracted, but we had 3 deaths in our family in the space of 3 weeks, and I couldn't do it. You know, I couldn't really write about death, which I never ever thought I'd say, but I just didn't have it in me. So I went back and I wrote this story, and it's a very sweet story because I'd left a story untold, and later I went back and put some, you know, I put the death in it later, and then I wrote the book I was supposed to write, which came out first actually, and then the book I'm working on right now, it will be the 4th book in my Cincinnati series, which has a police officer that most people haven't liked up until now because he's kind of crotchety. His name is Adam Kimball, and there's a really good reason why he's been acting the way he has.
I am finishing up the Black Knights Incorporated series. So this book came out in April, which is number 9. Books 10 and 11 also come out this year, one in July and one in October. And then we haven't decided on a pub date for the last book, the final book, which will be coming out sometime next year, 2018, probably spring or summer. And I'm actually writing that book right now, and it's very exciting and a little bit bittersweet because it is coming to an end, and it's a pretty explosive end for readers. So yeah, that's what I'm working on, and then after that I'll finish out my Deep Six series, and all those books will come out fairly quickly following one another. And
It's hard to keep it all straight.
It is.
isn't it? I'm like, for me, the last 2 in this series, Wicked Bite and Wicked Kiss, come out in July and August. The next Scorpius Syndrome comes out September 19th, and we don't have pre-orders up, so I get a lot of emails about that. The Blood Brothers series I have a release next week, I think, for Lethal Lies, and then the Twisted Truths will be November. I have a new series coming out from Kensington that's straight romantic suspense, meaning no paranormal elements, or next year. And then I also have an announcement on October I can't make right now. That's all.
I want to know all the secret stuff,
I know,
don't you? I have one more book under contract in my Raven Rider series, which is called Ride Wild. It comes out October 31st of this year. I'm very excited about that one. I'm writing it right now, actually. And then I'm at this super exciting moment in my writing career because that's my last currently contracted romance novel. So I get to pause for a second and figure out what I want to do next. And I have 2 suspense ideas that I'm exploring.
suspense or romantic?
Romantic suspense.
Okay.
Well, one might be a little
Okay.
bit more. One actually might be slightly thriller. So,
Okay.
the romantic suspense idea is a spin-off from my Harding series, which would be called Harding Security. At the end of that series, they create a security company, and now they need to hire a whole new team and create a whole new overarching, really, really freaking awesome suspense plot for them to investigate. So that's one that I've been plotting out and considering. And then I have a paranormal military brotherhood series that I've been sitting on based on real legends coming out of multiple militaries from a certain place on the planet. And I'm really excited to consider the idea of writing a group of, they would be mercenaries who start out human and they encounter something that starts to make them less so. So I'm really excited about that, and that actually may veer a smidge more thriller. I'm not sure yet, but those are the two things on the suspense side that I have sort of percolating in the works. So we have time for, I think, one more question.
And if we did do giveaways too.
Do you guys listen to music when you write suspense, like to help you get
No, you
moods
Not
or
as
feel
much.
the?
I do for the romance sections,
You do.
for the emotional sections, for like the character sections, but I completely right brain, wind whistles to the linear side of my brain. So when I'm trying to plot, I can't have any distraction at all. My outlines are fairly notorious when I'm doing romantic suspense. Somewhere in the middle of the outline it says somehow they find out who the bad guy is. And terrible things happen to the hero and heroine. And yeah. So I got to figure that out while I'm writing, and I can't be distracted by music, but character stuff, yeah, all the time.
Like the word outline, like totally sends
Oh,
me
I
down.
know.
Like I just can't. Yeah, that's like its own scary suspense story right there. Just the word outline.
I do not listen to music when I write, but I listen to music every other minute of the day. I mean, when I'm cooking, when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, and I always have music references in my book, so it is a big part of my life. But my husband says if I could use the portion of my brain that's taken up by song lyrics, I would have cured cancer, because I know the lyrics to every song, and I don't even try to. That's just one of those things that my brain kind of naturally does. And so if I try to listen to music while I'm writing, I end up typing what I'm listening to because I know all the lyrics, and then so I can't do that. But I do use music as inspiration.
I listen to film scores.
Mm-hmm.
I pick.
When I get to a big, like my last 24 to 48 hours of when a book is due is my big. That's when most of the book is written. I mean, that's my process through 52 books. I've tried to change, I can't. That's when probably a quarter of the book is written in the last 24 to 48 hours.
You're the person who did 2 a.m. term papers, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Me too.
That's me too,
And
that's me too.
Yep.
yeah, and so I have to have complete silence, and I put my bows on, and then I'll type 40,000 words or whatever.
I blare music the whole time. And sometimes the music doesn't even remotely relate to what I'm writing. I could be writing a kill scene and I'm listening to Jingle Bells. But I have the music all the time.
It's so creepy.
So
in its
it is
own way.
totally
I pick one song that represents important things to me about the characters or the theme or the feel of the book, and I listen to it on repeat the entire time I'm writing a book. So I'll look at my play thing afterwards, and I know I've played 753 times or whatever. But after a while I don't hear the lyrics anymore. Like it becomes white noise. But it puts me, like that song puts me right in the mental place of the book. So that's.
And your family's like, "Are you done with that book yet?"
Well, I
They've heard
do.
it
Yeah.
over.
Well, the funny thing is, it'll be on repeat on my phone, and my phone Bluetooths to my car when I'm driving. And if I haven't reset it, I'll pick my girls up and we'll be driving wherever, and the same song will be playing, and they'll be like, "Mom, we get it. It's your book song.
Seriously.
Could you put on Hamilton for the person who's listening?"